Hello, everybody. This is Jason Jeffries here for another episode of the Alliance Project. We're also doing things with the Leap Project, Dave Dobbs. Like you guys to check out Gerald Clark and Jay with TRT Revolution Fitness, and also check out Matthew LaCroix's channel if you can in your free time. I got a little work with all those channels, and just kind of spread the work around and give you a couple ideas of where to look. So today I'm going over a few orbital diagrams I made for Nibiru, Herculobes, Nemesis, whatever you want to call it. I kind of want to get rid of some of the confusion that's been happening with researchers claiming other researchers' work and past work and mixing it together and things like that. So I'm trying to, hopefully this kind of clears up any of that mix-up. So here is one of the charts I got set up for us, and I wanted to kind of go over a couple of different people's work. So when you think of Carlos Ferrata, Zacharias Sitchin, you know, just all the great minds that went over these different orbital charts, even like Gil Brizard and, you know, a couple of the newer guys, you could say. They've done it all, even Robert Harrington, if you will. But if you're trying to look at their data and what they were saying, you know, the new Planet X, Planet 9 models, you have to realize they're talking about different scenarios trying to solve the same problem. So this one, what I did was show what the Mayan calendar shows is we had a long cycle, a 26,000 year cycle we went around and we just got through. So about 13,000 years ago, 12 to 13,000 years ago, we had a cataclysm so big it sunk Atlantis, destroyed civilization. We've ever since then been trying to get our technology back to the way it was, as in the times of Atlantis. So you could say about 13,000 years was a number of importance in this cycle, which is coincidentally the halfway mark of the cycle. So in my theory, what I was doing was taking the literal Hebrew name of Nibiru, meaning planet of the crossing, and just took our sun and this dead dark star, this neutron star. I believe it went supernova. As you look into the history tales, it says that this planet actually used to be in a twilight, basically a time before night and day. The sun got super bright, burned everybody on the surface. They had to go underground or underwater. The women stopped ovulating. Some of the races actually had to leave the planet, and it caused a lot of cataclysms. So I'm thinking that was one of these stages, either this star turning into its neutron star, the black star in the sky that we mysteriously search for today. So this would be, the planets would be rotating around it, just as ours are rotating around ours. Always in the same motion when you're on the top of it looking down. And if you're on the bottom looking up, it would be just the opposite. But as this goes around in the same motion, it's always going in the same motion like gears. Think of gears. It gets to the halfway point in the center of gravity, okay? The center of mass. And when it's at the center of mass, this planet out here, it would start looking more like a nucleus or a cell. See how I did this? The gravity would start pulling towards each other, and this long, oblong rotation of Nibiru would actually cross, which is the red line, in between Jupiter and Mars. Essentially that way, not crossing around the backside of the sun, but crossing through that way. So that's just one of the things. And this yellow line is what I would call Planet 9 from their paper that they discovered. It is actually following around both stars. So I kind of wanted to clear that up. That's just one hypothesis. All right, so it rotates around. The other hypothesis is, you know, essentially the same, but you could stretch Nibiru out to the extended the other side of the Mars-Jupiter atmosphere, as some people think, going around the sun instead of the center of gravity. And then it would look like this. So as it goes around, it would actually start to, just like this yellow line, as it gets to either point over here, it would start to be longer, essentially. So the orbit could go from maybe 12,000 years to 3,600 years. As it gets closer, we get closer, the orbit would get shorter between the two distances as they reach the middle point. This would be the inclination of it. So this brown right here would be the asteroid belt, essentially where Ceres is, and it crosses through. This is more along the lines of what Carlos Ferrata said back in the 80s. He said he predicted that this planet was going around a dead star. You know, he called it all Herculobes, but it was rotating around this at a speed, and it essentially had three speeds. This speed, the speed of going away, and the speed of coming close. After this point and after this point, the halfway point, it'll slow down. At the halfway point here, it'll speed up. So it has three speeds essentially. And if you take at it in that sense, then it's very scary to think about. And this is going to happen like clockwork. He also said it happened every 13,000 years. And he said it was what sunk Atlantis. If you think about how different binary stars could work, they essentially look like a spiral or many things. So I kind of did a couple different orbitals here to show you that if they were going by the other binary star layout, where they rotate around the center of gravity and usually cross each other, this one is, I think, about 80% of all stars in our solar system look like this. They kind of have an orbit like this right here, where they have a center of mass and they both intersect. Okay, so there'd be a point where this star would be here and this star would be there, and the planet would be going across, causing a lot of chaos. Okay, and then as they go away from each other, this one goes around and goes out here, this one comes down and goes out here, the orbit in between would get greater. So that would be the discrepancy in the number, 36,000, 12,000, 666,006. They had all that. It shows you how, this is how binary stars orbit. So it's very, very good chance that this is it. So we know for a fact that the 26,000's our cycle. We know for a fact 13,000 years ago, cataclysm changed the world, lifted the oceans out of their basins, and just destroyed humanity as we know it. We also know for a fact that up to 80% of the stars in our galaxy are binary right now, with a neutron star, a dead star, or another star lurking somewhere nearby. So they believe that all of them, if not more, are binary, if not trinary. So this right here, this chart shows you the same sense thing essentially, and how the speed and how they actually rotate around the center of gravity instead of each other. This star doesn't rotate that star, this star doesn't rotate around that star. They rotate around the center of gravity, which has to do with the bigger, it's closer to the larger mass star. This right here is a chart of Carlos Ferrado, which actually made a lot of sense to me, because he said his arse, and he did calculations, he even knew that Halley's Comet at the last second was going to turn. He's predicted earthquakes within 4 hours, months ahead of time. And he said that these two, if you consider this, that he said within the next 20 years as this thing approached, that we'd have very, very bad earthquakes right here, which we did in Chile, right around here near Japan and Australia, which we have, and right here near France. So think about that. He was already right. It shows that as we think they always rotate around in a circular order, that's not true. As these other things come close, it's just like the formation of a cell or nucleus or neutron or proton or electron. They rotate around each other in elliptical orbits opposite each other. There's always has to be two. Without the two, there is not one. So they balance each other. It's just the scale. They go around each other. We all know about cells and how they become stable and unstable. So in the same sense, this keeps our system stable. But as this one approaches, it puts a lot of stress on Uranus, Pluto, Neptune, or Jupiter, and especially our Earth. And it pulls our solar system into more of a nucleus, atomic-looking organization. It makes total sense if you consider all this. All right, and if you think about what Robert Harrington, Zachariah Sitchin, and even Gil Brizard were saying, if you listen to what Gil's saying, he's just picking stuff out of the Bible, which goes with all of this, but it also, you got to think about the Bible and what it's used for and the impressionists. But the sense of that it's predicting a lot of things and even showing the rotation and things like that in the right sense. I believe that when he started reversing models and grasping at straws and saying, oh, no, 9/23/2017 has nothing to do with it, and now he's saying it is, and I feel like he kind of jumped the gun and went head over heels into his faith instead of the facts. Sitchin believed that it wasn't coming till around 2070. But he also said that if they were going to come here, and this is just orbital dynamics, that if they were going to land here, they'd have to land here a couple years ahead of time, because by the time their planet is going by the sun really close, it's going way too fast to try to get off and land. So they get off ahead of time, fly here at a normal speed, and land. So there's a lot of things that show Sitchin. Essentially, what really correlates with human societies of number about 50,000 years ago is when humanity really started appearing societal improvements and really crazy records, and definitely an interference of these fallen angels, Anunnaki, if you will. And he liked to put a number on 400,000. Maybe that was with the scouting mission, or when they realized that their waters had mingled and there was life here, or whatever. But I do not believe that he had all the facts right when it comes to the certain numbers, this and that, and interpretations, because there's a lot of people out there that interpret it just the same, say the same thing, but they're more on point in connecting dots that he didn't do. Essentially what I have here is all of physics has to do with is just a tornado. It's essentially a tornado, and that is it. There's nothing more to physics. For a self-sustaining tornado to happen is essentially the JED, the raising the JED. It is creating a low-pressure system that would reverse. Let me see if I have it here. If I have, it would basically permeate, and then at a certain point reflex back and do the opposite, essentially reflect and reciprocate on the opposite side. And that's what you could call like a conjugative field, plasma field. It's a fractal field, basically, where you create different things with basically the Enochian symbols, the Hebrew letters, all of that had to do with this. It was trying to get you to picture the angle of the plasma donut and the projection in your mind. I'm actually going to do a whole show on this period, but I was kind of just showing you that even in all of physics, the same duality key is here, and it's always present. It's actually all of physics is actually just everything to do with the tornado. So these binary signs and all that, it all has to do with the same thing. This isn't as crazy as people want to believe it is. So what I got here is a couple things I'd like to pull up for you real quick. All right, so this is a newspaper article I pulled up just talking about Planet X. It says, shrouded in the sun's light, mysteriously tugging at the orbit of Uranus and Neptune, an unseen force that astronomers suspect may be Planet X, a 10th resident of the Earth's celestial neighborhood. We're talking about the IRAS scan and they found an object about 50 billion miles away. They're admitting to sending Pioneer 10 and 11 out to probe and find out, and they think it's possibly a brown dwarf or a collapsed star or a neutron star. They don't know. So essentially, they know that it's way too big, it's pulling on it, and like I said, just kind of wanted to give here. And this is actually talking about the 26 to 8 million year cycle that I went on and did a show on about the extinction of the dinosaurs. Right here is an animation of two stars orbiting each other at a stable pace, where they do not get any closer or further away. Kind of showing you how they can dance around each other. So essentially put us as the third dot around that at the back side of this blue one, and put us in line with a nice rotational flux that's about the same, and blam, that would be why we couldn't see this thing if it was going at that rate, because essentially it would always be behind the sun and rarely pop out behind us from our angle. This one right here is kind of discussing, if you really look at what Gil was saying, it kind of confirms what the Bible is saying about the entry and exit date and the path. And there is things that all correspond with Sagittarius, this whole thing. So that it's starting to really come together. And I'd like to just kind of show you, a little bit of this. You can pause it, read over it if you'd like. I'm going to leave it there for a second. And right here, this is one of the papers that you will not see that often because the man got murdered for it, essentially. And this is right before, about 5 years before he got murdered and really started finding out and putting a number on this thing. So it says they systematically searched the sky. They found out Pluto was not the reason. It doesn't have any effect. Their observations of this go back to 1846. So what they did was they realized that essentially it was at a certain part of the sky, and they used a method called Inky's method, right? That's how they found that comet and comet's name, Inky and Ison. It's something to really think about. And they're trying to find coordinates. They're trying to basically triangulate where this thing is. So they got it down to a place in the sky. And if you guys would like to read this, you could kind of take it from there. But I believe the next page is coming up in 1 second. So I'll leave it here, pause for a second so you guys can read over it. In any of these references you see, they're actual papers talking about Planet X beforehand, before Harrington. And this is the second part. So basically, over 13 years, they scanned the sky looking for this thing. For 13 years, professionals. And they know that they said it wasn't there. And then, so here what you're going. This is the following nominal orbit may be used to locate Planet X. It's semi-major axis. It's the period. That he thought it rotated around about 1,000 years. And that would actually creepily match, Jesus and a couple other things in the Bible as well, and some of the, I guess, the 360-year rotating as it gets out further and further out. But that's neither here nor there because it's only speculation and math at this point. But they said it's 4 Earth masses right there. That's its inclination. That's its augment, and it's absolute magnitude. That's what they're saying, and it's assumed. Okay. Saying between the 30th and the 1930 and 1943, between 14th and 15th, south of the negative 41 degree mark is where they think that this thing could be seen. The present position is now 16 hours, negative 38 at magnitude 14. Any search used this above starting point indicated the broad region. All right, so what they're saying is literally that's where it was at this time. And this is where you could start looking for it. If you've seen something there, report it at that point. These are the references. So yeah, I wanted to show, this is why he was getting killed. He was trying to find this thing. Kind of wanted to get this out here. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll go back through this one more time so you can kind of see my orbital charts and diagrams one more time. All right, you guys have a good evening. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned.